are listening to Acciopolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. As always, I'm Adri, one of your hosts, and a recovering English major.
And I'm Helene, your co-host and producer.
Helene, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Living the dream, as someone I know likes to say.
Living the dream. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought we would have been able to make podcast friends over the internet and just
honestly
meet up once a week and shoot the shit about Harry Potter, among other things.
Heck yeah. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast yet, but listeners, I got my second promotion in 4 months at work. So I'm just climbing that corporate ladder.
A rising corporate star.
Yes. But that also has just meant increased responsibility and being thrown into the fire and having to learn things very quickly. But I'm loving it, every second of it. So
I mean, we're working from home, so we're working from home goddesses over here, but also that means work and home delineation is really weird and strange, and also we podcast from home, so that's also we do everything from home.
I got a fancy new setup for working from home. I got a new desk with a new fancy chair and a new monitor and stuff. And now that it's so well set up and comfy in my work area, now I just podcast from the same place where I work. So I literally have not left my desk since this morning when I clocked in for work. I'm literally sitting in the same spot. So
well, and my job is super flex, so I will get off this podcast and clock into work. So how does that sound?
Yeah, I wouldn't like that, but I'm glad that you found something that works for you personally.
I mean, having a baby and all of that, and not wanting to send her to daycare because I have my own hangups about trusting strangers with my child. Gotta do what is best for our little family, I guess.
Exactly. You're a mama. You'll make those decisions.
But it's okay because I got the little Cleo here next to me, my little black dog Cleo, and she's chilling. She's monitoring the podcast situation, making sure that I am right on track and we're going through all of the things that we need to go through.
Yeah, she's acting as assistant producer of this episode. So
yeah, how's Lily doing? Is she also assisting you?
She is actually literally right at my feet at the moment. So yeah, I would say she is. She's giving me kisses right now. So if that
she's giving you encouragement. I love it. Love a queen.
Yes, exactly.
Well, today we're going to be talking about Chapter 19 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And this one is called The Silver Doe. But before we get onto our summary of this chapter, let's get into a little bit of the news of the week, Helene, because we've got a little bit to cover that has happened recently.
Yeah, the first one was the Georgia runoff elections were, as of recording, were last night. We're recording on Wednesday, December 7th, and the elections were Tuesday, the 6th. And I went through a roller coaster of emotions while watching election coverage. I don't know about you, Adri. I don't know if you watched the election coverage live, but it literally changed every 5 minutes.
It was a nail-biter. Yes.
Yeah. It was literally within 1 percentage point difference the entire night almost, and changed, seesawed back and forth. Oh, Warnock's in the lead. Oh, Herschel's in the lead. Literally 50 different times in the span of 2 hours. It was insane.
Did you have a little panic attack every time that Herschel was in the lead?
Oh yeah. Well, I remember we were at it was 87% reporting, and Walker was leading by 0.8 percentage points or whatever. He was literally, it was less, it was almost a percentage, but not a full percentage. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. We're gonna lose. And then literally an hour later, Warnock was projected as the winner. So I was like, oh, thank the fucking Lord. But yeah, it was definitely a nail biter, tight race. But outcome is we have a democratically controlled Senate um, under a
And
democratic
then some.
president.
And
Yeah,
then some. Like we
it's
don't need the
51.
tiebreaker.
Yeah, 51
49.
49. Yeah. Um, which means that like we'll be in control of the committees for the Senate, which is amazing.
We don't need Joe Manchin's vote.
Right. Yes. Um, and it's great. I mean, I think that this hasn't happened where a Democratic president has not lost a single Senate seat in the midterms since FDR. I think if I might be.
And not
Um,
only did he not lose a single Senate seat, he gained one. So,
yeah, it's incredible. Of course, we're the Republicans still hold the majority in the House, which sucks. But I'd say 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
but that's where gerrymandering gets you.
Yeah, yeah,
So the issue is with gerrymandering isn't necessarily like Senate races, right? Because that's based on the popular vote.
right.
The gerrymandering goes in like the congressional races.
Yeah, yeah. So, good news for us. So, yay, blue wave.
Go us. Okay. In uplifting news, other uplifting news, Donald Trump's real estate company was convicted yesterday, Tuesday, of carrying out a 15-year-long criminal scheme to defraud tax authorities, adding to the legal woes facing the former U.S. president as he campaigns for the office again in 2024. So this is from a legal case in New York City where the company had pleaded not guilty, and Trump himself was not charged in the case. But it's important because while the fine is not expected to be material for a company of the company size, the conviction could complicate their ability to do business by spooking lenders and partners, and banks could even start calling in their loans. So
Does this help us get anywhere closer to having an indictment so that he can't run again, so he can't be elected in
no, but
2024?
it comes close to making his business interests null and void.
Okay. Well, if anything, I mean, he's had a lot of ticks in like in the negative column for his current supporters recently, um such as dining with you know, not only Nicholas Fuentes but also Kanye West, who also then praised Hitler and the Nazis very shortly after having dinner with Donald Trump. But then also having his backed candidate for the Georgia Senate election, Herschel Walker, lose. It's a bad look for him.
Correct, correct.
So, I mean, he's losing credibility. It looks like his base is finally starting to get a little smaller. Um, Changes are happening, I think. So,
Well, and I hate to sound this cavalier, right? But I would also think that one of the reasons that his base is getting smaller is because his base were COVID denialers,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah. That's definitely something to consider for sure. Are you eating like marshmallows? What are you eating?
I'm eating one of those little Debbie Christmas cakes. I'm sorry, I'm so
Mm,
hungry.
yum. That sounds delicious.
That I love nature this time of year.
We're not to our chocolates yet, but I feel like I have to show you. I found this huge ass bag at the grocery store. It's one of those variety packs, but it has 3 different types of Reese's.
Ooh.
So we have our regular Reese's, our Reese's
Uh-huh.
take 5, which I
Is
love.
that
They
the
have
pretzel, the
yeah,
caramel, and yeah.
yes, it has like a pretzel at the bottom, and then there's like peanuts and caramel, and then obviously chocolate and peanut butter. And then my favorite, which are the unsung heroes of the Reese's products,
Okay,
fast
tell me.
breaks. Reese's fast breaks. Have you ever heard of fast breaks before?
No, I've never had it. Tell me more.
Okay. It is literally just a Reese's like bar with nougat in it. So it's like it is like a
Like
Three
a Snickers?
Musketeers. No, like a
No.
Three Musketeers with peanut butter in it.
Ooh. Ooh.
Because
This is exciting.
Three Musketeers are like one of my all-time favorite what do you call it? Candy bars. I just love chocolate and nougat together. They're so good. And like Milky Ways were
Mhm.
good too, but the amount of caramel, like the sweet, like caramel's so
It's too
fucking
much.
sweet. Yeah. So like all the sweetness and like the amount of, if the caramel to nougat ratio in a Milky Way was less, it would be better. But yeah, I feel like Reese's fast breaks were just like not discussed. Like they've always existed, I think. And
You know what I love? And I'm like the not like I'm just probably not like the hip person on this. I love the white chocolate Reese's.
I still have not tried
And
those. I still need to try those.
they also make, I mean, I think they have the trees in white chocolate too for
Mm.
Christmas.
Ooh, that sounds good.
So that would be a way to do it. I also love the Reese's cups with Reese's pieces in them.
The texture. Gotta love that texture. I know
Yeah.
that they
Like
make
that crunch, you know?
yeah, I know that they started making the Reese's cups with like pretzel pieces in them. I want to try that.
Ooh, that
Because
sounds
I think
delicious.
yeah, the little saltiness, especially like in the Take 5, I think that helps like because you get a pretzel in
Mhm,
there and
mhm,
oh,
mhm.
it's pretty great.
The
Um
sea salt crystals of the
ooh,
pretzels, the crunch. Oh, great.
yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then another Reese's product that wasn't in my variety pack though that I think is an unsung hero is have you ever had Reese's sticks?
No.
Oh
How
my
did Reese's make all these products I don't know about?
They have so many products, and like people just pass them over and just get the normal Reese's when they're in like the candy aisle because they're like, oh, I know what
I
this
feel
is.
like I feel like we should say for real, we are not being sponsored by Reese's, but if you
I
are
mean,
interested in sponsoring acciopolitics, we're in.
my stomach is sponsored by Reese's right now because I've been yeah, this you guys listeners obviously can't see this, but Adria can see this. This is a mighty large bag of Reese's products. And it has basically been all I've been eating for a long time. So, but anyway, Reese's sticks are basically like if Kit Kats and Reese's had a baby. Like they have the wafers in them.
Ooh.
So it's obviously like chocolate covered
I
peanut butter with wafers. They're very good.
I like a wafer and chocolate.
Yeah, it provides the crunch, like the texture that obviously the other things we're talking about. Unfortunately, it doesn't really add any other flavor. Like if it like the pretzels add like the saltiness or whatever, and Reese's Pieces add like extra sugar. Wafers are just
Mm.
kind of there; they're just crunchy, but it's good. I like it.
Yeah. So sorry, guys. I was eating, and this conversation got out of control real fast.
Hey, we were gonna get to this eventually in our chocolate section, so we just front loaded it. It's fine.
Yeah. No. Sure. My chocolate is like the little Debbie snacks, of course. Sure.
Of course.
Okay. So, Helene, that conversation out of the way. Please tell us and remind us, refresh us, if you will. What happens in chapter 19 of this book?
This is the one where, after thinking they hear someone in the forest, Harry and Hermione move their camp to the Forest of Dean. That night, while Harry is keeping watch, a Patronus in the shape of a doe appears, and Harry follows it to a frozen pool in the woods where he sees the sword of Gryffindor lying at the bottom. He dives in to retrieve the sword, only to be attacked by a Horcrux, the Horcrux that's still around his neck. And Ron shows up, saves his life, and retrieves the sword himself before ultimately destroying the Horcrux with it. They then return to camp together and explain what happened to a very pissed off Hermione, as well as Ron tells them how he came to find them again in the first place.
An action packed chapter.
Yes, I was talking to
Like some of the other chapters in this series.
yeah, I was talking to Kat earlier tonight before we were recording, and I told her we were going to be talking about this chapter, and she made a good point that this is kind of like the turning point in the book, where like
Hmm.
a lot of the problems that they were having all the way up through the first half of the book get solved in this chapter. Like Ron comes back, they finally get the sword of Gryffindor, they finally like get rid of the Horcrux. Like they have a path forward now. They have new hope for the rest of the book. So um, this is definitely like a big chapter in terms of moving the plot forward.
Yeah. It's not all doom and gloom like some of the other chapters I've been.
Yeah, I actually did have a hard time thinking of like a Dementor this chapter. So surprisingly,
Well, stop giving us previews of Dementors in Chocolate, Helene.
obviously, I can't wait to get to that part. Apparently, that's like all I can think about. I guess it's fine.
But tell us about your politic instead.
Yeah, so this chapter I went with instinct for the politics of instinct. So instinct is defined as a natural or innate impulse, inclination, or tendency. Um, and basically, they just kept on jumping out at me everywhere throughout this chapter. Mostly Harry. Harry follows a lot of instincts and impulses that he can't really seem to explain in this chapter. Um, and they seem to be informed by a gut feeling that he himself in the chapter describes as instinct. So, like, for example, following the doe into the forest, he, like, for some reason, he just knew that was the right thing to do. He knew that he wasn't going to be in danger. He doesn't know why he knew that, but he just, like, knew that. Um, when he gets to the frozen pool and sees the sword at the bottom of it, he kind of just knows that he's supposed to jump in the lake and retrieve it, um, instead of like trying to get it out from other means. He
Hmm.
thinks about a couple of different ways to get it out, but then he's just like, you know what, this is what I'm supposed to do. I need to do this. Um, and then when they have retrieved the sword and he knows that the Horcrux needs to be destroyed with it, he for some reason just knows that Ron is the one who's supposed to destroy it. He doesn't explain why, if he does know why he knows that, but he just like it's like, I just know that you're the one that needs to destroy the Horcrux. So that was another one, and then at the end, kind of just like they kind of brush past it in the chapter, but like walking back to the tent again after the whole ordeal, like they seem to like neither of them know how they got there. Neither of like Harry was just following a doe. He wasn't paying attention to where they were going, but yet somehow they were able to find it again very easily on the way back. It's like he was just like subconsciously following like his mind to where he knew the tent was, even though he didn't knowingly have an idea of where it was. And then not only Harry, but Ron also shows instinct at the end when he's explaining the Deluminator. Like when the Deluminator comes up and like created that blue ball of light, he just like
Hmm.
explained that he just kind of like knew that he was supposed to like follow it and that it was like trustworthy. And he was like, I don't know, but like I just knew that this is something I needed to do. So it was all just kind of like people following their gut and like knowing things without being able to explain how they knew them.
Okay, I like that. So, mine is different, which I love because then we can kind of play off each other.
Yeah.
Mine is the politics of teamwork. And the reason I was thinking about this, obviously, not just because Ron comes back, but also because, as we later learn, it was Snape following Dumbledore's instructions that was, putting
Yeah.
the sort of Gryffindor in the lake. So that they had their own teamwork going on.
Takes a village.
Um, it takes a village. Yeah. But there's the way that I was thinking about this chapter reminded me of Brené Brown. Do you know who Brené Brown is, Helene?
Yeah. Are they the one that like writes the books, like the self-help books and stuff?
She is a researcher, and she focuses on shame and vulnerability.
Okay.
And she talks like, so they're kind of like leadership books and like how to be a better leader,
Okay.
um and also how to really be a better human person, right? Like, and how vulnerability is the pathway to real connection
Okay.
between people. And one of the studies that she cites in her work is this idea of how having someone by your side actually makes things seem less daunting and makes you feel more confident that you're going to be able to do it. And then I found this study, or one of such studies, that I'm
Okay.
going to talk about here. So it says so this is a scenario where you imagine like the walk to and from school, um going at it alone might make it seem like it's uphill both ways. So, when judging the steepness of a hill, people overestimate the angle more when alone than when they were accompanied by or even thinking about a friend. Reports an international group of researchers led by Simone Schall of University of Plymouth in England in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. The longer volunteers had been friends with their companions, the less steep the hill seemed. The authors hypothesized that psychosocial resources, such as having a trusted friend nearby, help people see the challenges in their surroundings as easier to navigate. In similar studies, subjects who were fatigued, out of shape, or wearing a heavy backpack perceived hills as steeper and distances as longer than they really were. So, like, when Harry is without Ron, right? Like in this instance, or he's fighting with Hermione, or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like those challenges may seem insurmountable to him, but having the support of trusted friends makes everything seem more bearable. And I think Ron kind of also touches on that as well. Like, I wanted to come back, but I just couldn't. Like, I didn't know how to find you guys. Like, he was like out of, like, they were all out of sorts without each other, is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
they're better together than they are apart.
And if
And
only
there's a
Ron knew that or acknowledged that earlier and didn't leave.
well, but I mean, even Harry and Hermione had been fighting, right? And not getting along, and like there was a whole thing about, like, yeah, Ron sucked in what he did, but he was also in a way like the glue holding both Harry and Hermione together, and like keeping them off each other's nerves, because then like it directed Hermione's energy towards Ron for some reason. Like,
Yeah.
whatever the case is. But also that the trio is able to accomplish more when they are facing obstacles together, because it seems less daunting than when they're all out trying to like do it on their own, or or
Yeah.
thinking about things on their own. So that's kind of how I was thinking about that.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense.
So that being said, tell me about the quote that you chose for instinct.
Yeah, this time it's a really short one. Just one sentence or two sentences. Um, Usually I have like a whole paragraph, so this was like nice. The quote is, "Caution murmured it could be a trick, a lure, a trap, but instinct, overwhelming instinct, told him that this was not dark magic." And that was in regards to whether or not he should follow the doe into the forest.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
he
it's
followed that intuition and instinct, right?
yep.
Right to the sword of Gryffindor.
Yeah, it's just he had no way of knowing if he was right, and he didn't know for sure, but he just had this gut feeling that this wasn't going to cause him harm, and he followed it. It's a risk. Following your gut, following your instinct is always a risk. Um, but if you trust yourself, and it seems like Harry kind of trusts, he's been through enough like dangerous shit in his life that he probably has a good gauge of like when to seriously be worried and when, it's something that even if it does end up being downhill, that he can handle it. So he trusts himself by this point, it seems, which is good.
Thank God. I
Right.
mean, I think, yes, it's a risk when you follow your instincts, right? But it's also like everything in life is risky. Even sitting and waiting to do nothing is risky, right? Because you let opportunities pass you by. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, what kind of risk do you really want to take?
Yeah. Just pick and choosing your battles.
Well, my quote is also slightly shorter than my usual quotes. So we're we're doing short quotes this day in this fine podcast of ours today. And now, said Harry as they broke apart, All we've got to do is find the tent again. But it was not difficult. Though the walk through the dark forest with the doe had seemed lengthy, with Ron by his side, the journey back seemed to take a surprisingly short time. So that idea of like he was following the doe to the site, right? And it seemed like a lengthy trot because he wasn't with someone he trusted. And then on his way back, it was
Yeah.
surprisingly easy and short because he was with Ron, who is like his best friend and someone he had a really deep connection with. So
Yeah.
it's the same journey, right? Just the people you're with dictate how you feel about it.
Yeah. This also, I mean, this was also a moment that I mentioned in which like they were like, "Oh, we don't know where the tent is," but yet they somehow were able to find it super easily. Um
Yeah, through teamwork.
Yes. But then, and this doesn't actually support your argument for teamwork as to why, like, the reason why this was easy. But like, I don't know about you, but like I always feel like coming back from something is like goes by quicker. Like when I'm driving home, like say I'm like when I drove home for the holidays for Thanksgiving, it's a 5.5 hour drive. The drive there felt like it took fucking forever. The drive home felt like it was like 2 hours long. Like it felt like it went by super fast. And I think
were
that
were there any differences in what you were like listening to, doing, thinking about?
no, and I mean that happens every single time. It's I go on like we go on a journey. And I feel like I've heard many other people who've said the same thing. Like coming home or going back is easier. And I think there's a couple of different things that could account for this. Like for example, like when you're going somewhere, leaving for a trip or whatever, there's a lot of unknown. You're not like you don't know what's gonna happen while you're gone. You don't like it's kind of or like you're anticipating too, like you're excited and you just want it to get there and therefore it takes longer. But when you're coming home, it's like you're going back to your life. Like you're there's nothing daunting about it. You're just going home. You're gonna go back to your bed. You're gonna go back to the people that or the pets that you have. And I think in this case, it could be like when he left the tent, he was going into the unknown. He didn't know what to expect. It was daunting. It was a daunting task. Um, he could be killed for all he knew, and so he was like he could be following this doe to his death for all he knew, and so maybe that's why it felt long. But on the way back, it's like they achieved their task. They don't have anything to worry about. They just need to get home and get in their nice warm beds and enjoy sleeping. And so it's like they don't have things that they're like worried about reaching when they get there.
I mean, I haven't really experienced like the it gets it getting back from somewhere takes less time personally. Like I have not experienced that. Like
Okay.
I drove we drove 8 hours to El Paso back and forth to and from, and I felt every hour, let me tell you.
That sucks.
Yeah, I felt every single hour of it in the back seat next to the baby. Um but it might be like, time perception is different like for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going back to something familiar and you're kind of like, oh, comforted by going back to something familiar, but will that also like the comfort of a friend, or like in the study it said even the thought of a friend makes everything feel smoother. But when he was going to like when he was following the doe, Ron did not even feature in his thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah. I
or
mean,
even Hermione. Like he was just like
yeah, I
going
mean,
at it alone.
I think it also kind of can tie with, the saying time flies when you're having fun, right? He had someone, he was happy. Ron had returned to them. They had figured out the source of their problems. They found the sword. They got rid of a horcrux. Like he was like, hell yeah, like
There
this
was
is a
some emotional baggage unloaded
right. And
at the
so
site.
like I think that time is gonna just pass faster when you're not fucking stressed about 8 zillion things, you know?
Well, when you're like you said, like when you're stressed out about something, even like the simple things seem like harder than they usually should be, right?
Yeah,
And then if you take time to rest and recover and maybe get like a helping hand, things could seem less daunting the next day or even 15 minutes later.
totally. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so for instinct, who was your character in this chapter?
I went with Harry.
Yeah.
I mentioned, Ron does also show instinct in the chapter, but it just happens so many times with Harry, and I think it has to do with what I mentioned earlier, that he's been in these types of situations enough times that he trusts his gut when having to face these types of decisions, because you know he's been through the good and the bad in terms of
Hmm.
dealing with these types of things. So, what about
Yeah.
you?
Well, for me, it was Harry. I mean, he's the one, obviously, the one we're following, and also the one whose time perception we're privy to, right? So,
Yeah,
or, how long the journey or difficult the journey seemed versus like following the doe versus coming back. Um, and even like his perception of like, I think it should be Ron who tackles this Horcrux, and like his belief in Ron helped Ron tackle these like terrible things that the Horcrux was saying and inciting him to do, right? So I think
yeah.
were Harry not there, maybe Ron wouldn't have been successful either in tackling
Well,
this like monumental task.
yeah, and on the flip side, if Ron wasn't there, Harry would be dead.
Correct. So, teamwork again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They definitely helped each other out a lot.
I mean, I we could have another conversation about like how Hermione factors in all of this
Yeah, it's just not.
later.
She's just not as big of a person, like, factor in this chapter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like if your a definition of teamwork is to like hit someone
yeah,
as
yeah,
they talk, that's it.
yeah, yep.
Oh, all right. So, Helene, how do you see the politics of teamwork in the series? I think we've kind of talked about it in broad terms, but
Yeah, I mean, I the first thing that comes to my mind is the DA, right? Like, um, everybody's working together to like make sure that everyone feels prepared to fight these battles when they're not being properly taught through their education by Umbridge.
mhm,
Um, and they're all showing up for each other, and they're all supporting each other. Um, and in the end, they all are successful, and they all learn a lot, and they all become better witches and wizards because of it. And that's because they faced it together, I think.
mhm. Well, I think for your politic, which is instinct, a lot of the magic that this series is based on,
Hmm.
like the central magic, which is like love conquers all, right, is
Yeah,
very much an instinctual, seems like an instinctual type of magic. Like Lily didn't utter a spell, right,
yeah,
when
yeah,
she died, but gave Harry the protection that, the like the love of a mother, right? So these like quote unquote ancient types of magic are more based on like instinct and feeling rather than like execution and I don't know, like she waved a wand and said these words, so and it always comes back to like Dumbledore being like there's more magic than the type of that you can learn like at
yeah.
school, which is like what Voldemort doesn't understand. So like that instinct is a magic all on its own.
Yeah, and speaking of Dumbledore, I think his trust in Snape is also very instinctual
Oh yeah,
because,
like come on.
yeah,
Unless he's like dosing Snape with Veritaserum every like 3
right.
months to check
Like
in.
like I said, like, it kind of ties back to, trusting your instinct is a risk. And it was a huge risk for Dumbledore to, like, he was pretty sure that Snape was being sincere and wanting to help fight the good fight against Voldemort, but like he doesn't know for sure. There's no way to know. Like you have to decide to trust someone, and his instinct was telling him to trust Snape. And that could have really fucking backfired on him.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean, look at what trusting Peter Pettigrew did for the Potters. You
right,
know,
exactly. Right. Putting your trust in the wrong person. You think that you know someone, you know?
this is why I don't trust no bitches,
Except me.
and maybe like like 5 other people in the world.
You can trust Livy. She will not tell any of your secrets.
Yet
Yet.
she's starting to babble, girl. Like I don't know, she's gonna start podcasting with us pretty soon.
Good. We need a third host that has her unique perspective of being a
A
baby.
baby.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, not
Everything
to
is so
brag,
new to her. She's experiencing everything for the first time.
not to brag, but it's pretty cute when she babbles.
I have seen the videos. I know. I agree.
Also, the dogs are really scared of her because she's grabbing.
Oh, poor pups.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm sure they'll make up eventually. Like she's already starting to like she has like these teething wafers and she's starting to like when she's kind of done with them like hold them out to the dogs to like hey, take it. And the dogs
Adorable.
are like, "Food? Yes." And Seth was like Seth was like, "No, don't give it to the dogs." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. It is what it is."
Oh my gosh. The life of having a baby and dogs.
It's having all kinds of babies, fur babies and human babies.
Yes.
Anyway, let's go into our Dementors and Chocolate, the most hyped up section this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Helene, go ahead.
I mean, we hyped it up, but like I mentioned earlier, it was hard to think of a Dementor for me this chapter.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I won't say anything. I thought that the author was trying a little too hard with like the writing a little bit in terms of
Oh,
like
oh, oh. You mean um, I'm sorry. Let me no. No.
I'm guessing you saw the same things I saw then.
There was some passages where I was like, look, put down the thesaurus and walk
Yes.
away.
Okay. Honestly, okay. So this is behind the scenes here. I bought myself a Kindle over Black Friday, and this was the first chapter of rereading for this podcast that I read on my Kindle.
Okay.
And I don't know if people know about this, but Kindles have this nifty thing where you can like hold your finger over a word and it'll look it up in the dictionary. I had to do that like 4 times during this chapter because she used such ridiculous words, like not ridiculous, but like that like she found the most fancy way to say a certain thing and said it that way. Like I was like, dude, stop being so fancy pants. Like you are trying way too hard to sound fancy in this chapter. It was like very like
Okay,
obvious.
I found a section. I'm
Okay, cool.
sorry.
Thank you. So the readers know what we're talking about. Yeah.
All right, the
And
listeners.
listeners. Yep.
Okay. For me, this was one of the ones. It might not be for you. Okay.
Okay.
Though the darkness had swallowed her whole, her burnished image was still imprinted on his retinas. It obscured his vision, brightening when he lowered his eyelids, disorienting him. Now fear came. Her presence had meant safety.
Burnished was one of the words I had to look up. I was like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is burnished? There was a couple yeah,
No, but also like his retinas. Like, come on, you can say eyes.
yeah, there was, but yeah, that was just one. There were like at least 2 or 3 other
Oh no,
instances where I
there
was
was
like, "Come
yeah.
on." So yeah, but that isn't even. So like that would be like my complaint about like the actual like logistics, like writing of the chapter in terms of like the content, the plot. You know,
The
um,
plotting was good. The sometimes the actual execution of the writing, I'm like,
Yeah.
I can see how people are like, she it was a little too precious in her writing in terms of like, you just spit it out,
Well,
say
and
it, you don't have to, yeah.
it's really frustrating because it's inconsistent. Like this is not how she writes in every chapter. It's like every once in a
Correct.
while you read a chapter and you're like, "What the fuck is this chapter?" Like it doesn't. It feels like someone else wrote it, or like she plucked it out of a different medium. It was very strange. It's just not anything I'd ever noticed reading these books before. I've never like thought to critique the literary like content of the anyway. Um,
Okay, like this is another one. Okay, I know.
no, go
I'm
ahead, go ahead,
sorry.
read it.
This is not the one where it's like it's too fancy of a word. I just feel like it's like this is a dumb, not a dumb. Like this is just not a where I an editor I would have like stricken it out and be like, I think this you're doing too much.
Okay, go ahead.
The cold was agony. It attacked him like fire. I'd be like, you're doing too much. You're doing too
I
much.
mean, so that kind of plays into my actual like mentor was that this chapter just makes me very cold when I read it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I need to be bundled up in 60 sweaters and 40 blankets right now. Like I'm fucking freezing just reading this chapter."
I mean, you did say, I think it was off mic, that you had your
It
space
is
heater to 85.
it is also just very cold in Minnesota right now. So like that on top of it, but just like, just reading the chapter just and also this has to do with like the actual writing of the chapter again, but like it is unrealistic that Ron did not get hypothermia. I do not care that he is a wizard or whatever.
I'm sorry. I'm not care that he's a wizard or whatever. This is
I
great.
mean,
I love it.
see, I don't care. He jumped into that frozen pond with all of his clothes on and then proceeded to stand out in the snowy, windy, cold, probably below freezing air for like, I would guesstimate at least 20 minutes as they fought the Horcrux.
Yeah, like
He didn't.
instead of saying being like, I'm gonna look at thesaurus for 7 hours while I
Why don't you
write this
like
one chapter,
look
why don't
up
you just
how
like think it through logically.
just Google how does one catch hypothermia because I'm pretty sure this chapter would come up in the definition of how someone gets hypothermia. Like the fact that he just gets back to the tent and is completely fine. Like
Oh,
it's,
but Helene, he lost a few fingernails while
that was well,
apparating.
yeah, that was apparating, yeah, but like
I know, but like she got that detail of a
yeah,
made up thing right, but she can't get hypothermia right,
yeah. It's just this. It's
which is
just
the real thing.
these little tight little details like take me out of the story. Like she's a good storyteller. She's a great author. She is great at world. She has a lot of strengths. She's great at world building. She's great at character building, character development. Um, these tiny like details that take you out of the chapter and like the superfluous writing that's inconsistent from paragraph to paragraph. Like this is not where she does not excel. So
Correct. I agree.
anyway. I feel like I just like said 10,000 different dementors, but
Oh, you were like, it was really hard to find a Dementor, but let me tell you all the problems I
okay,
had with this
so
chapter.
I guess if you think about it, not one dementor I said had anything to do with the actual plot or like content of the chapter.
But as you know, we at acciopolitics have a very superfluous would be a word that she would use, meaning definition of Dementors, which is like it could even be the writing style.
Yes, yes. So yeah, this chapter I did have dementors that were about the actual like mechanics of writing the chapter, I guess.
All right. My Dementor, believe it or not, is not about the writing of the chapter, even though honestly it almost was.
I covered it for the both of us. It's good.
Mine was just how the Horcrux really zeroed in on all of Ron's vulnerabilities and exploited them. And I think this is the only Horcrux we see that actually does this. in this book. Am I incorrect?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, it definitely put like the other one I'm thinking of is like the diary did put up a
Yeah,
fight, but it
but
didn't like
that's like
attack Harry personally, I don't think.
yeah, but first that's in chamber, right?
Yeah.
And second, it didn't like even if it was trying to exploit Harry's like weaknesses against
Yeah.
him, it didn't cut so deeply as to like get into all of his insecurities like this locket did for Ron.
Yeah.
Like even Molly came out,
Yeah,
like
I'm trying to think. So like the the cup just like I don't know, did any of the other ones really like try to
no.
stop them from being destroyed? I guess we'll have it's been like I said, it's been a while since I read this book, so I could be forgetting some things,
I
but
don't think I don't think really any of the other Horcruxes other than Nagini, of course, are like and Harry sentient in in the same way as the locket. You know what I mean?
yeah. I wonder if it's because the Lockets got to spend so much time with them,
With them and with with
with
Toad
Ron.
Face McGee
Oh,
with
the
Umbridge.
Umbridge, yeah. I feel like because they wore it so closely on them for so many months or weeks or however long they've been doing this,
But
like
really,
it
Harry would
learned
have
about
worn
them.
it. Yeah, but Harry would have worn it the most, and Hermione, because Ron hadn't been with them for
Yeah, but
weeks.
Ron was holding this sword.
Yeah, no, I know that,
Yeah.
but like, it just went like it was one of the Horcruxes that, like the warfare was like really psychological in nature.
Yeah, it was intense.
Let's talk about our chocolates for this chapter. I mean, you've already regaled us with the Reese's of it all, and I have regaled us with the Little Debbie of it all. Let's talk
Yes.
about the actual in chapter
Yes,
chocolates.
yes. Mine is a quote, and actually, I'm looking at yours now, and I think our your quote comes directly before my quote in the chapter.
Oh, do you want me to go first?
Sure. I was like, oh wait,
Okay.
that's literally the quote right before mine.
Okay, so the reason I like this quote, I want to preface it, is because Harry shows like as per usual, like great emotional maturity and vulnerability and understands what Ron needs to hear, which is also the truth, right? But like he is taking care of Ron's feelings after witnessing an extremely vulnerable display of like Ron's worst fears
Yes.
right in his face.
Yeah.
So Harry's response to that is the following. After you left, he said in a low voice, grateful for the fact that Ron's face was hidden. She cried for a week. Probably longer, only she didn't want me to see. There were loads of nights when we never even spoke to each other. With you gone. He could not finish. It was only now that Ron was here again that Harry fully realized how much his absence had cost them.
Yeah. I mean, I think mine is my chocolate for very similar reasons that yours is, but I'll continue the quote from where you
Yeah, go
left off
ahead.
because mine is, she's like my sister, he went on. I love her like a sister, and I reckon she feels the same way about me. It's always been like that. I thought you knew. Um, but yeah, I mean, the specific reason I chose this part, this specific the quote, and like this part of the chapter is because like I feel like, Harry and Ron have never been ones to like be super emotionally intelligent people.
Hmm.
Hermione's always been the one that has to be like, feelings, idiot. Uh, and I think that in this instance, Harry is showing some real emotional intelligence and maturity, because he's able to see what what it is that Ron needs to hear. He's able
Hmm.
to acknowledge, like, this is what Ron is feeling, this is why Ron is feeling it, and this is what I could say to help him feel better. Um, which seems like when you like say it, it seems like unremarkable because that's like how every human being kind of is supposed to interact with each other, right? Um, but he
You
has,
think.
yeah, he's just showing like very complex empathy for Ron in this moment. And these are things that the things he's saying are objectively true, and like and in the um occurrence of my quote have always been true. Um but like he's never no one has ever felt the need to like say them out loud.
Hmm.
And Harry is just like he's like these are things that like I assume we all know, but saying it out loud is going to help you right now, so I'm going to do that for you because I
Yeah,
I want to help you. So
and and that's where we're
yeah,
at.
I love an emotionally sensitive king.
Well, that's it for our discussion of the chapter this week. Helene, as we wrap things up, tell us all about the media you've been consuming.
So I'm sure I've watched other things, but the only thing I want to talk about is that I finally finished Lucifer.
Hmm.
I watched the season or the series finale 2 days ago, I think.
Okay.
Amazing. The whole show, like, just shot to like the very, very top. It's not my favorite show of all time, but it is in my top five. My top five
Wow.
favorite shows of all time. I have decided, and that's hard because like I watch a lot of fucking TV and I have high standards. So at least high standards for my specific interests. Uh,
No, and that's fine. Yeah.
but I gotta say, I think okay. So there are 6 seasons of the show. I'd have to say, I think season 5 was the best.
Hmm.
They literally like the last couple seasons had me just literally cackling through most of the episodes. Like I have never I don't know the last time I've laughed out loud that often while watching a show. Because I feel like, when you watch a show and it's something it's funny, like you laugh, but like internally, right? Like you don't like fucking show
You
outward
laugh.
emotion.
You laugh when you're like you're dead inside.
Hmm.
Like you're just like, okay, that's funny.
Right.
You acknowledge that it's funny. If it's a text message, you would have said LOL, but really, you're not laughing out loud. You're just
Yeah.
acknowledging something is funny.
Yeah.
You're not really
Yeah.
laughing. Yeah, gotcha.
The last show I can really remember that ever got me like laughing this much was Whose Line Is It Anyway? That show cracked me up back in the day, and it probably is still just as good. But yeah, no, it was great. The only I do have a little bit of a complaint about the last episode because, and I'm not gonna like spoil things for people because I do want you all to watch it and I don't want to spoil anything. But they do utilize time travel in the last season, and I, as a general rule, hate when anything at all uses time travel as a plot device because it is almost guaranteed to be inconsistent. And like when things decide to use time travel as a plot device, it's like giving the writers like a green light to just do whatever the fuck they want and just be like, "Oh, time travel."
So, quick question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about shows where time travel is the point of the show?
Are you thinking of Outlander specifically?
I'm thinking about Outlander. I'm thinking about Quantum Leap. I'm thinking about
Okay, so
Doctor Who.
I haven't seen Quantum Leap or Doctor Who, so I can't speak to those, but like shows like Outlander, they're happy like we're okay, so we don't see the things that happen in the past directly affect the things that happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of seeing them concurrently, right? Like we're
Yeah.
seeing, and so I haven't had an issue with that at all because I feel like it's not trying to like bend the rules of time travel at all. It's not like playing around with it. It's just like, oh, we can either be in the past or we can be in the present, and like our lives would be different whether
So,
which one we
what I'm
decide.
trying to say is like, is the issue with time travel more of like, oh, it seems like a cheap shot when you don't know how to figure out, like, write yourself out of the plot that you're,
It
like, plot corner that you're in? Or is it like, because
I
I enjoy time travel shows and movies
yeah,
when the point is the journey of the time travel, right? Like the
yes.
journey is the point. I do not enjoy time travel when it is used as a way to get out of a corner that you've written yourself into because you didn't plan well enough in advance.
Yeah, I think the second one is a little bit more where my frustrations come in. Like, for
Yeah, yeah.
example, like I am a huge Marvel fan, love Marvel, seen everything Marvel that exists. Um, However, the plot of Infinity War,
Mhm.
hated it. Hated it. Like where they go back in time and like get all the stones or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like it was like this is not how we'd established that time worked, and
Yeah.
like we just needed to do it to reach the plot. And that's kind of how it was with Lucifer. Like, so Lucifer actually exists in the DC universe. And in both the DC universe and the Marvel universe, it has been established that that there's a multiverse. That
Mhm.
when you like, make a specific decision, you branch another timeline, and you
Yeah.
you create an alternate universe where something else happens. Time is not a closed loop in these universes. This was the issue with Infinity War. They acted like time was a closed loop. It's not. And same with Lucifer. Like the whole plot of the last episode is it has to be this way because time is a closed loop. And it's like, no, it does not have to be this way. Time is not a closed loop. You 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 literally, like, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Lucifer was in that crossover for Crisis on Infinite Earths in the DC universe. Like, there are multiple timelines. So if someone
Mhm.
goes back in time and changes the future, that does not mean that you have to do something in the present to ensure that whatever the future was when they came back in time
Happens.
happens, because they've
Mhm.
changed the future. So now you can have a different future. You don't have to have the same future.
Correct.
I
Correct.
that was the thing so that is a plot point, a bit very very large plot point in the last episode of Lucifer. However, I thought the storytelling was great. I thought, like, I could see what they were trying to do. I like how they ended it. Like, overall, I'm not disappointed with the finale. I just, like, if you're gonna use time travel, if you're going to utilize that as a plot point, I think you need to set specific rules and stick to them and not change them all willy-nilly to whatever fits your plot.
You just want them to time travel responsibly.
Exactly.
I
Like, I
understand.
was like, when that happened in Lucifer, when they were like, "Oh, we have to do everything exactly the way that it happens, or else this future will never exist." I'm sitting there yelling, like, "How the fuck do you know? That's not necessarily true, especially not in your universe. So why all of a sudden are you so convinced that time is a closed loop? You have no evidence to back up this theory." And then all this shit happens where you're like, they didn't have to go through that. They could have they could have avoided that altogether.
Well, I it sounds like the seasons you really liked from Lucifer were the seasons where Netflix picked it up
Yeah. I
because it
mean,
was
it
on
was
Fox
great.
up.
Yeah, it was great
Yeah.
up until then too, but yeah, I think season 5, like, so many good things. The musical episode happens in
Yeah.
season 5.
I feel like Netflix gave them more money slash more artistic control.
Yes, and I mean, I don't want to spoil, but like, you meet God in season 5, who that entire plot line was just had me on the
Yeah.
floor rolling laughing. It was done so well. And it's just incredible that the show, which is literally based off of the devil, which only
Mhm.
exists in Christianity. Actually, I don't want to say only. It doesn't exist in Judaism, but like,
Mhm.
the devil is a very Christian notion. It's literally about Lucifer Morningstar, the devil. Yet that show somehow managed to not bring religion into it like at all. And I
Yeah,
think that was really to its benefit. And it had a really great message at the end of it all, um, in terms of like free will and self actualization and afterlife and healing and being the best person you can be and all that stuff. So
I think that you're really going to enjoy reading some of his books,
okay, good to know.
because that's basically who he is. He talks about a lot of like mythical, let's
Hmm.
say, for lack of a better word, uh, and things and representations, and does not bring religion into it, and actually has really fresh takes on things. Um, so did you ever watch Good Omens?
I haven't watched that. Should I?
It's from him too. It's from Neil Gaiman.
Is it good?
I think it was good,
Okay.
but you may not like it. Who knows?
I mean, I'll try it. I liked Lucifer a
He
lot.
also did American Gods on Stars. I think is on Star.
Okay,
I think
I
it's on
have not heard of
Stars.
that one at all.
Let's see. I'm trying to think about. I'll text
Well,
you.
Stardust is Neil Gaiman. I know that.
Yes, yes, but the book is very different from the
Yeah,
movie.
but it's funny because my sister is a huge fan of both, actually. And she said that even though the book is completely different, she loves the movie just as much, but like for different reasons. So
Yeah, no, and that's great. I
yeah,
like it. Like he's written so many novels. I'm trying to think about a specific novel of his that I think you would like, but he also does a lot of graphic novels too. So he's very prolific.
yeah. Well, after finishing this show, it makes me want to consider naming another future pet of mine, Lucy, because
Oh
that's
my god, I love
because
it.
that's what Amenadiel calls Lucifer. And it would be fun if it because so like my sister's fiance, my future brother-in-law Chaz, has a cat named Lucifer, and it is named after that character. But it was like the
Oh,
character from the books and the comics, not the show, um, because the show hadn't come out yet by the time he got the cat.
so you should also. I mean, if you have a chance, read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman.
Okay, I will look into that.
I think you will like it.
Yeah,
And also The Sandman on Netflix is from Neil Gaiman.
yeah. I actually I need to watch that too. I heard about that. I need to watch that.
So, actually, Neverwhere is one of my favorite books from
Ooh,
Neil Gaiman.
awesome. Okay.
It's just never been adapted, I don't think.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Mm-mm. I say that, and now I'm thinking maybe they did a like radio drama on it, but that's I think about it.
There is an
All
Everywhere
right.
TV show.
Oh, there is.
I don't know if it's based off of the
Okay. Well, we can figure that out later.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of things that had me laughing out loud, I want to continue a thread from last time we recorded. I watched an episode of Bluey today that had me laughing out loud and wheezing.
Of course you did.
I'm like, when I tell you I was wheezing, Seth was very concerned for my health.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
I was just like, ah! Like just wheezing the entire way through because it was so hilarious. But anyway, that show never fails to entertain me and make me laugh out loud for real.
Amazing.
Uh, but something I've been really enjoying on Netflix has been Wednesday. I don't know if you started watching yet.
I have not. I really, really want to, but I am trying to hold off because I think I'm going to try and watch it with my sister when I visit her for Christmas. But I
Well, when
really,
you
really want to
do,
watch it.
text me.
Yeah, I
When you do,
really,
text
really,
me.
really want to watch it.
I am really enjoying it. I'm trying to space it out so that I'm not like completely binging it in one go, but
That's
I'm
fair.
really enjoying it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this like scene of her dancing or whatever. I've just heard so much about it. So
I mean, there's a lot of iconic scenes. I haven't gone to the dancing scene, I don't think, but like, there's so many iconic scenes so far that I'm just like, beautiful.
I am
Her roommate is everything.
I'm hype. Enid, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen the show, but I know so much about it already.
Yeah, her roommate is everything. I love her. I want to adopt her. I also want to adopt Wednesday for different reasons. I just love it all. I feel like Enid and Wednesday are two sides of my personality.
Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't seen the show yet, but from what I've seen, it makes sense.
It's like, I don't know, it's maybe just like my Gemini sun and my Scorpio moon.
Yeah. I mean that yeah. Yeah, there we go.
It tracks. It tracks.
It
Anyway.
does. It does.
Yeah, that's what I've been watching, but I still am a fangirl for Bluey. Sorry guys, it is what it is.
It's so funny that you watch that show.
I listen, I am not the only parent who really loves this show. I've spoken to a few people who are like, yeah, that show slaps. Like,
Oh my god.
Loki.
Oh my goodness gracious.
You don't know what you're missing out on. I had like a almost hyperventilating, like wheezing, laughing attack at this one episode. It's great. I love it so much. So relatable and hilarious.
It's probably exactly how I looked when I watched the Lucifer musical
Exactly.
episode. The musical episode, yeah.
It just brought so much joy back into my life because you do watch some things and you're like, that's funny, lol, like you say it in your brain, but you're not laughing out loud. And you see a lot of memes and you're like, this is relatable, this is funny, but you're not like cackling or wheezing. But when you do have that just reaction, it's just, you feel a lightness in your soul.
Yes. It was like when they made God wear socks and sandals. I died. I absolutely died. I was like, oh my god, of course God would wear socks and sandals.
I mean, iconic, an icon,
Yeah.
God.
Yes. It was so good.
Well, that being said, that's it for today's episode. Please join us next time as we talk about Chapter 20 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. This one is titled Xenophilius Lovegood.
I wonder what this one's about.
Well, I don't know. A mystery.
I wonder if we'll see Xenophilius Lovegood in it. I don't know.
I wonder if it's about a mystery wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in another mystery.
Yeah, I wonder that too.
Wearing a yellow wig.
Yes. And like, what was it? Like egg yolk, yellow robes? Is that what
robes? Yeah.
Well, if you've enjoyed this conversation that got very animated and heated at times, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you happen to be listening to us right now, because it helps new listeners find the podcast and it makes us happy. All the reason you need.
It makes us laugh with delight and joy. Out loud, not just LOL.
Exactly.
Well, until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/acciopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at acciopolitics.com, and we are at acciopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@acciopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Acciopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.